Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the Minute Waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But also to welcome to the programme four exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to pit their wits and their talent and their verbal dexterity against each other as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sue Perkins, and seated on my left, Andy Hamilton and Gyles Brandreth. Please welcome all four of them. The time is, it's Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score. She'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, a lovely subject. A grandfather clock. Tell us something about that subject in this game, if you can, starting now.
How's this for a coincidence? My grandmother died at exactly 10:27 a.m. and the time on her grandfather clock was exactly the same.
Giles, challenge.
Repetition of exactly.
I know, there's too much exactness, yes. Giles, straight in there. Correct challenge, a point to you. Take over the subject. And 52 seconds still available. A grandfather clock, starting now.
As Oscar Wilde liked to say, there's nothing quite like an unexpected death for lifting the spirits. So that when my grandfather was killed by his own grandfather clock falling on top of him, we wondered whether it was an accident or done by design. In fact, my grandmother was the murderess, and she had a hell of a time really killing him properly. She'd wanted to do it with the cuckoo.
Oh, wait a minute. Sue challenge.
Was it repetition of time? There were 2 times in there.
Yes.
Well, she was a bit of a two-timer. This was the cause of the problem. She was having an affair with the clock mender, as you would have discovered.
But we didn't bother to wait for that. Sue was listening well. Welcome back.
Did the clock mender come round the house that you could sustain an affair with him?
Make a very slow thriller, wouldn't it?
Once a year.
That's a bit rude.
Yes.
Welcome back to the show.
Lovely to be
Lovely to
here.
have you.
You
And
rogue.
you've got him with your first challenge, which is correct. And there are 30 seconds still available. A grandfather clock, starting now.
It's very hard to make a grandfather clock. For starters, you need to find a grandfather willing to put up with an enormous pendulum round his neck, added to which, of course, the timepiece needs to sit on the face. But, of course, you can make one very easily. They're to be found in post offices queuing, and thereupon you might be able to take them from said long line and say, how about being a timepiece? All you need to do is stand in my hallway and go dong upon the hour. And everybody loves, of course, to hear that.
Andy challenge.
Is dong right? For the sound of a...
You're right.
That sounded
What do you mean? Is dong right?
No,
Is that not deviating from...
You're right.
Fact?
Can I say you're absolutely right. The dong is the thing with the luminous nose. The bong is what a clock does.
Surely there's a dong.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Whatever phrase you want to use to give the resonance of a clock striking is apt. But it was an incorrect challenge, so Sue, you still have the subject, and there are still 5 seconds available. A grandfather clock starting now.
These beautiful timepieces can adorn...
Giles challenge.
Repetition of timepieces.
Yes, you mentioned timepiece before. Yes.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
A correct challenge, Giles. Another point. 3 seconds are still available. A grandfather clock starting now.
Bing went my clock. It was a bit hysterical at the time.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Gyles Brandreth, so he's in the lead at the end of the round. And Sue, we're back with you very rapidly to begin the next round. Amelia Earhart. Can you tell us something about that famous airwoman starting now?
Amelia Earhart was the first female aviator to cross the Atlantic Ocean. She was a bit of a tomboy, and at school people remember that she would wear breeches, shoot rats, climb trees, and generally get up to all kinds of no good. The first craft she ever made was a simple cabin that sat atop a slide and went down from the top of the shed roof to the ground. She fell off, but that was her first experience of what it was like to be briefly in the heavens.
Right, Giles.
So interesting, but there were 3 firsts in all.
That's right, there were.
And also, although it's very poetic, briefly in the heavens, I wouldn't describe falling off a shed.
Yes. It was unduly poetic.
Briefly in the heavens.
Yeah.
It's unduly poetic,
Unduly
I think.
poetic.
Unduly poetic.
Yeah.
Going to A&E, so I was briefly in the heavens.
But under the pressure of keeping going on just a minute, she did very well, but she did slip up. Gyles, another point to you. 30 seconds still available. Tell us something about Amelia Earhart, starting now.
The great mystery about Amelia Earhart is what happened to her once she disappeared, flying over a part of the world where her ship...
Andy, you've challenged.
There was a little hesitation.
It doesn't matter if it's little or small, Andy. It's a hesitation.
Huge.
That's the story of my life there, Nicholas, in one phrase. If I had £1 for every time I've heard that.
Well, you had a correct challenge, Andy.
Yeah, I know.
You get a point for that.
Well,
And you take over the subject. 21 seconds, starting now.
Amelia Earhart was, as I recall, an aviator who wore a rather fetching flying cap and a leather jacket with woolen collars. It is a mystery as to where she disappeared, but I think recently in the newspapers there was a rumour that she may have been captured by the Japanese, or have I confused her?
So Andy Hamilton was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's in second place alongside Sue Perkins, behind Gyles, ahead of Paul. And Andy, it's your turn to begin. The subject, downsizing. Can you...
OK, I want that very cruel laugh edited out.
I don't think of the subjects, by the way.
No, I know.
No,
that'll be the producer.
Yeah.
Obviously got an agenda.
Anyway, the subject, I'm sure you can go on it. 60 seconds if you want to. Downsizing, Andy, starting now.
Downsizing is one of those awful words that crept into our language in the 1980s, and it was a time when, for some reason, people started bolting nouns together to make very ugly verbs, usually which were euphemisms for something rather unpleasant.
Sue?
Slight hesitation.
Slight hesitation, yeah, but I don't think it was enough.
I don't want charity.
No, but what I do in this show, Andy, you haven't been in so often, I give the benefit of the doubt on occasions. And if I can redress the balance later to Sue, I will. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say it wasn't hesitate, it was not. So he gets a point for an incorrect challenge. He has downsizing still. 39 seconds, starting now. Paul challenge.
Well, that was hesitation.
No, it wasn't. He didn't start.
Wasn't it?
No, he definitely
didn't. What was that gap then between you stopping and Andy starting?
Is there a difference between pause and hesitation?
Yeah, dramatic pausing, that's what I'm doing.
Okay, fair enough.
It's because of my Shakespearean training.
Right.
What if I start before the buzzer? Would that resolve it?
That'll solve it.
So another incorrect challenge, Andy. Another point to you. 30 seconds still available. Downsizing, starting now. Paul?
You could have baked a cake there. Sue's telling me I could have baked a cake.
Yes.
I agree with you on that.
That was a hesitation.
It was a definite hesitation.
Honestly.
Another point to you. Not another point. Your first point, actually.
Yes, thank you very much.
37 seconds available, Paul. Downsizing, starting now.
I realised that downsizing was our only option as we looked to our future. The bank balance was no longer what it should have been. The money behind the sofa had long run out. We were going to have to find a bungalow. But what a beautiful building we saw. On the edge of Earl's Court and the edge in the Rio de Janeiro jungle. It was a huge place. We admired...
Giles challenge.
The edge of Earl's Court and the edge of the Rio de Janeiro jungle. Repetition of the word edge, yes. E-D-G-E.
That's right, yes. I was trying to connect...
That stopped my fun.
Yeah. That stopped everybody's fun.
I was still trying to
He's
connect...
He's known for it, Paul. If there's fun to be had, Giles will stop it.
You can talk about a bungalow being from here to Earl's Court to Rio de Janeiro. That's all right.
So, Giles, we have to give it to you. 19 seconds. And downsizing, starting now.
My wife says that the first thing she will do when I die, before calling the undertakers, will be to get the people who provide the skip, so that she can do the downsizing that she has wanted to be doing for years immediately on my demise. All the jumpers will be going in, followed by the teddy bears, followed by all the...
Paul challenge.
Repetition followed by.
Yes.
Followed by, yes.
Followed by, yes.
And I'm afraid the followed by...
Is it too early to book the skip?
I don't think it's the first thing she'd be doing, Giles.
You did manage to get in just before the whistle, Paul, and you've got another point, and you have half a second to go. Downsizing starting now.
I'd like...
So at the end of that round, we have Gyles still in the lead. They're all 1 point behind each other. Then Andy, then Sue Perkins, and then Paul Merton. And Gyles, we're with you to begin. And the subject, grease paint. 60 seconds starting now.
Ah, the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd. I've recently been reading the fine biography of that great thespian, Sir Laurence Olivier, by the biographer Anthony Holden.
Sue challenge.
Repetition of buy.
2 buys.
2 buys. Double buy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, listen. What?
Do we have a fourth official that we can send it up to?
There's Hawkeye in the booth.
Giles, can you just replay what you did?
I will be doing that at home quietly.
Gyles has little model figures of us all, which he rearranges when he gets home and records a show so he comes out top. I've got one as well.
You all come out top in this show.
Exactly.
Sue, correct challenge. You have 49 seconds. Tell us something about grease paint starting now.
How I love the slap of grease paint on me. Protecting, of course, the audience from my real face, which sadly is not doing well under the burden of time. There is something incredible.
Giles challenge.
Deviation. I don't think she's ever looked more lovely.
Oh, Giles.
Oh.
I'm happy to lose a point. I just think it should be
Why is
stated.
there a warning signal going off in my head?
I'm reaching for the alarm in my bag. Hang on.
Within the rules of the
Yes.
game, it is deviation.
Yes.
She's telling us that she wears makeup to disguise her face. She clearly is wearing no makeup at all. The freshness of
I'm
her
on
face...
radio. If this was on television, there'd be a riot.
The freshness of her face is a joy to behold.
Yes.
The tone of that skin, those lovely eyes.
Yes.
The spectacles that
Yes.
are, in themselves, an erotic charge.
I wouldn't like to be with you in an optician's.
But Sue, you didn't have a challenge within the rules of just a minute, so you have a point. You keep the subject, grease paint, starting now.
I love the selection of things on the makeup artist's bench. Mascara, powder puffs, incredible rich colours of eyeshadow that glisten. Would you like some gloss on your lips, she says, as if I'll understand. I have no idea. It is an ancient and mystic art, but I succumb. I sit in my chair and let myself be painted into the person you may recognise. And I love it. It's playtime. Within that, I can be anything I want, and I choose to be a myopic woman in her late 40s, talking bilge.
Andy, you challenge.
Surely Sue can't be in her late 40s. That's just not possible. I mean, you know, as Giles was saying so fulsomely earlier.
So you're saying, metaphorically, it's deviation. Yes.
Deviation from the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
I think what I have to do here is give you a bonus point for a delightful challenge.
For charm.
But it wasn't correct within the rules of just a minute.
Oh, okay.
So Sue Perkins has another point, and she still has 6 seconds on grease paint, starting now.
Grease paint, the ideal camouflage, going into battle down the tinsel mines. Look at me.
So Sue Perkins, with great aplomb, get moving forward in that round, and against the challenges she got against her.
I'm coming here again, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, you've now taken the lead. You're one ahead of Andy and Giles, and 2 or 3 ahead of Paul. And Paul, it's your turn to begin the next round. Tahiti. Tahiti is the subject. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
25 years ago, I visited Tahiti, and I'm afraid it was an absolute dump. The hotel we stayed in was ridden with feral cats who, I don't know what they were living on, but it certainly wasn't the food that was being served up. It was awful. But since then, it might well have changed. They may well have a slogan that says, Tahiti, not as bad as it used to be, or looking to get better. But I'm afraid the Tahiti that we think of in the paintings that were done at the turn of the century, the previous 100 years, not the one that's just gone, conjures up a romantic image of Hawaiian girls on holiday on Tahiti, wearing layers and flowers and playing the ukulele.
Andy challenge.
Why are there Hawaiian girls on Tahiti?
Because they're on holiday. They're on holiday. Hawaiian girls on holiday in Tahiti.
It's fine. I'll accept they're going on holiday explanation. It makes as much sense as anything else, so that's fine.
They shouldn't have gone to Tahiti.
Right. I'll do what I did before, Andy, because we do enjoy your interruptions. And the humour you generate. So a bonus point to Andy there. Paul was interrupted. He gets a point. He keeps the subject. There are 25 seconds still available, Paul. Tahiti, starting now.
The most beautiful place I've ever been.
Sue, you challenge first.
Repetition of place.
Yes. So you have a correct challenge. Sue, another point. 23 seconds available. Tahiti, starting now.
Tahiti, French Polynesia, where the captains used to go on holiday. Cook, Blythe. He, the first one, was there so long his wife said, "Where on earth have you been?" When he finally got round to returning home after some 20 years. Blythe, of course, that
Paul challenge.
Unfortunately, repetition of Blythe.
Yes.
That's right. And Blythe didn't go to Tahiti. It was the...
He did.
I think he did. That was when the mutiny on the Bounty
yes,
was.
I'm going back to front. Yes, they put him in the boat and they went away. It was Christian who stayed on board. I'm so
You must
sorry.
remember, Nicholas, you were doing the on-board entertainment.
To show you how generous I am, give him a bonus
It went
point
so
for
well,
that.
they threatened to drop him off at time.
Right, Paul, so another point for that. And 7 seconds available. Tahiti starting now.
As the statues of Nicholas Parsons were built across the island of Tahiti, the natives looked up and said, "That's a cravat we can follow to the end of the earth."
So Paul Merton was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he's crept up on the others. He's now equal with Andy Hamilton, just behind Sue Perkins, ahead of Gyles Brandreth. And Sue, we're with you to begin, and the subject now is cold calling. Talk about it if you can, starting now.
Have you ever been missold PPI insurance?
And Gyles challenge.
Repetition of P.
Yeah, well listened, Giles. Well listened.
And to think I was on the verge of capitulating to you, Brandreth.
So, Giles, yes, well listened. Another point to you. Cold calling is with you now. 56 seconds available, starting now.
Cold calling is very bad manners. Wheezing, sneezing, snuffling at the end of the line. It is as bad...
Sue challenge.
That's heavy breathing, isn't it? I think if they're doing just that, they've either got hay fever or it's a sexy call.
Now, I was talking about phoning up when you've got a cold. It's very bad manners.
I know you were, but you didn't quite convey that so well, did you?
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll have the benefit of the doubt, Giles. An incorrect challenge. Keep the subject. Another point. 49 seconds available. Cold calling starting now.
It is for this reason, cold calling, that we now have our delightful young au pair, a Hawaiian girl called Tahiti, to answer the telephone for us.
Andy challenge.
What the hell is a Hawaiian girl?
Where's the wee win?
I know. That's a woman born in Hawaii that lives in Newcastle. Who were you?
Andy, you've got it this time. A point to you, a correct challenge. 40 seconds available. Tell us something about cold calling starting now.
The other day, I received some cold calling. A man rang and said, "Am I talking to Mr. Hamilton?" And I said, "No, I'm the burglar. I've just killed him." This is quite a...
Sue challenge.
Repetition of this. Just this.
Well, they laughed, you see.
yeah,
I thought I got in the way.
Yeah, but Sue was correct,
No, I know.
unfortunately, because we did enjoy it.
She's
Andy.
lovely, isn't she?
I'm sorry, I can't give it back to you for flattery.
No, I know.
28 seconds, Sue, with you. Cold calling starting now.
Whenever I get a cold caller, I like to engage them in conversation. Once they finish their sales pitch, I'll take a long, deep breath and talk about my divorce and where the kids are going on their holidays and how sad I am that my old car no longer works. And I will maintain this endless monologue until they realise what it is like to receive unsolicited information into their lug holes. Because the point is this: you think as the phone rings that you're going to be speaking to a friend.
So, Sue Perkins, speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, and she's just taken the lead ahead of the other three. And Andy Hamilton, we're back with you to begin, and the subject now is runner beans. Telling us something about those delicious vegetables in this game, starting now.
Runner beans must be the most misleadingly named vegetable that you can purchase from your greengrocers, because as far as I'm aware, runner beans have no legs. Therefore, they are incapable of running or even breaking into a mild jog. It's a misnomer. Climbing beans would be acceptable, or possibly dull, stringy, tasteless beans, but not runner beans. Beans are of their nature not athletic. Tom Courtenay was never offered the lead part in a film called The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Bean.
Who challenged first? Paul.
Well, it was a slight hesitation.
Paul, the correct challenge. You have the subject, you have runner beans, and 20 seconds available starting now.
The Vegetable Olympics were hotting up. Everybody looked towards the runner beans to get a title for our country. A medal was in the offing, bronze, gold or silver. These runner beans show they were made of the right stuff. As the first... I couldn't remember if it was a whistle or a gun. It's a gun that goes off, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Sue Perkins, you challenge?
Hesitation.
absolutely.
There was, yes. Another point to you. And 7 seconds available.
7.
Runner beans starting now.
I love runner beans, and they're such fun to grow. The eating not so great, but wow, to plant them, and then when they're done...
So Sue Perkins was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point and has increased her lead over the other three who are all equal in second place. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is a conversation with my hairdresser. 60 seconds starting now.
How do you like your hair cut? In silence used to be my reply. But since I've met this charming hairdresser...
Andy challenged.
Well, I thought the subject was a conversation with my hairdresser.
That's right, yeah.
But you said it, so surely it should be a conversation with Nicholas's hairdresser.
As you were about to discover, we share a hairdresser.
All right, okay.
Andy, that's a very shrewd observation, but within the rules of just a minute, it does make it very difficult to judge. But as you're such a clever player of the game, give him another bonus point. 54 seconds, still with you, Gyles. A conversation with my hairdresser starting now.
I was recently introduced to my new hairdresser by Nicholas Parsons, who was passing on to me his old hairdresser. The girl is charming. He met her in a nail bar at King's Cross. She is of Tahitian extraction. Her name, curiously though, is Irmgard. And she said to me, have you ever thought of entering Celebrity Love Island? I think you have got exactly what it takes. Not necessarily up top.
So this was a conversation with my hairdresser.
Yes.
It sounds like a conversation with my psychiatrist. What's going
No, you gossip with your hairdresser.
Do you?
Talk about Love Island. Of course
You find
do.
you're there long enough for that to happen?
I think that's very devious, the idea that he might be young enough to be on Love Island.
Oh, I would pay good money to see that.
You would?
Him in a mankini, stretching his Brandreth magnificence
Yeah.
across a sun lounger. Yes, I would.
With Anne Widdecombe and Edwina Curry.
Paul, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on
Thank
this
goodness for
occasion. A point to you, 30 seconds, a conversation with my hairdresser starting now.
When good hairdressers came to the London suburb of Morden, people were rather studiously avoiding it because they weren't suspicious of what was going on. A man, as I was sitting there having my hair cut one day, popped his head round the door and says, do you do proper haircuts in here? I was very embarrassed at the time because already I found the whole prospect of having my hair cut deeply reddening.
Sue challenge.
Vision of haircut.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
4 seconds available, Sue, on a conversation with my hairdresser starting now.
I think I'm the only person ever to have said, a deep, rich perm, please, madam.
And we're moving into the final round.
No.
Right, let me give you the situation if you're interested in the points. In second place, we have 3 equal players, Giles Brandreth, Andy Hamilton and Paul Merton, and they're trailing Sue Perkins, who's in the lead, by 4 or 5 or 6 points ahead of them.
Oh.
It's a
But-
wrap.
Paul, we're back with you to begin.
Yes.
And the subject is self-improvement. 60 seconds starting now.
At the turn of the 20th century, gramophone records became very popular, as indeed did gramophones. And people...
Giles.
A gramophone and
I
gramophones.
know, I was just pondering that.
Yes.
Gramophone, I thought had been repeated, but it was in the plural the second time.
That's right. So an incorrect challenge, Paul. Another point to you. 54 seconds available. Self-improvement starting now.
Various self-improvement discs became very popular. How to speak to a Cockney. Hello, Londoner. I want to speak to...
Andy, you challenge first.
There's a little hesitation
Yeah.
on Paul's Cockney there. I think
Yeah.
he was...
So, Andy, correct challenge. 46 seconds available. Tell us something about self-improvement starting now.
Self-improvement can be very difficult. For instance, if you ask Sue Perkins, how do you improve on perfection? It's impossible. For some people, it is just a mountain too high to climb. I have been on a self-improvement course, and I attempted to become a brain surgeon. That was a disaster. Many people died.
Soup challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah.
No, he didn't hesitate. He said it, got the laugh, and he carried on through the laugh.
Did I?
No? Yes, you did.
I have to say, inside my head, I know that I hesitated, if I'm strictly
You're
honest.
too honest when I'm trying to help you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know. It's been failing all my life.
No, I'm going to give you another benefit of the doubt and say that you didn't pause long enough.
Nicholas, I really appreciate it, but it's going to be humiliating after a while. If all of my points are either for grovelling to Sue or getting the benefit of the doubt, you know.
No, they're very genuinely earned, most of them.
Okay.
And you're not going to win anyway, so...
No. Now I understand.
Remove the doubt.
Now I
So
understand.
Andy gets another point.
Yeah.
Yay.
23 seconds still available.
What's
Andy,
the subject?
Don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Self-improvement.
Oh, yes. Self-improvement.
And 23 seconds starting now.
I once went on a training program of self-improvement which was hosted by an American guy who looked like an extra out of Starsky and Hutch. He listed all the qualities that we would need to catch.
Giles challenge.
I think there was then a hesitation.
There was a hesitation there. Another point to you, Giles. There are 8 seconds available. Self-improvement starting now.
When it comes to self-improvement, what I do have to improve is my posture. And to help me with this, I have 2 words. Nipples leading. When I adopt that...
Well, I mean, what a way to finish the show with nipples. Well, it's a situation whereby you have 3 people in second place. And Sue, you have more points than anybody else. So if you're interested, we say, you are the winner this week. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul, Merton, Sue Perkins, Andy Hamilton and Giles Brandreth. We thank our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. I'm grateful to Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. So from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you. Tune in again at the same time when we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But also to welcome to the show 4 exciting, talented performers who are going to show their skill with words and language as they talk on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 are seated on my right, Tony Hawks and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, Jenny Eclair and Phill Jupitus. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the scores, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we're going to begin the show this week with Tony Hawks. Tony, Mummies. Will you tell us something about Mummies in just a minute, if you can, starting now?
Appearing on this show is a very scary thing to do indeed. So if I suddenly say out loud, I want my mummy, you will understand why. Because your mummy will protect you against a group of people who are hell-bent on trying to stop you repeating words. And that's what happens in this crazy environment in which we find ourselves now. Yummy mummies, of course, is an expression I'm terribly fond of. When I go to the British Museum and I see the Egyptian cadavers there and I'm drawn to them, they are yummy mummies. It's not...
Phill, you've challenged.
Repetition of yummy.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely
well,
right.
Listen.
A slight deviation as well. It was making me feel a bit ill.
Anyway, Phill, correct challenge. You get a point for that. And there are 18 seconds available if you wanted. Mummies starting now.
Oh, imagine them coming at you with cake and tea and all the goodies that you like in your life. Oh, I shall have some of that, Mum.
Sheila, challenge.
Repetition of O? Oh, I don't. Oh,
Wow.
imagine them. And
Wow. That is the kind of seasoned, long-term player of the game stuff.
Well, actually, I was being very kind because I didn't interrupt him. He said mummy twice, and it's actually mummies on the card.
You could have challenged for that if you'd wanted, and I would have given it, because mummies is on the card. You can repeat what's on the card, but not the singular of the plural.
Well,
it doesn't really matter.
Thank you for holding back, Sheila.
You owe me one.
I do owe you one. That's an amazing...
Sheila, that was a correct challenge, so you have a point for that. You take over the subject of mummies. 12 seconds available, starting now.
I seem to remember being told in the British Museum that the procedure for making a mummy is rather complicated. They pull out the guts and the brain.
I'm glad the whistle went there. I didn't want to learn more about those guts and stuff.
It is an awful process, actually.
Anyway, in this game, of course, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Sheila Hancock, and she, of course, is in the lead at the end of the round. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin. A light bulb moment. Tell us something about that phrase in this game, starting now.
Well, I imagine this started as a cartoon thing when that pussycat had an idea. Well, yes, hesitate.
Jay, you've
I
done.
didn't understand the word. She used a funny word, and I'd say it was sort of deviation from the English language.
What was the word you used, darling? I didn't get it.
I hesitated, if that's what you mean.
She hesitated.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
There is honesty. It doesn't often get in this show. But anyway,
Well, we girls have got to stick together. You don't usually get two of us on a show.
Can you imagine?
I know, it's a breakthrough.
Hang on.
They're a bit slow, weren't they, Sheila? They're a bit slow on that. Somebody had a light bulb moment on the production team.
Don't waste it. Don't waste it.
You can do that.
save it.
Hang on. Right, so Sheila just corrected your assessment that she had... right, so that was deviation.
Well, that's clearly...
Started yet? I'm
It
allowed.
hasn't started yet.
I'm sorry.
The buzzer hasn't gone. I'm allowed to talk nonsense until it happens.
I'm right. Let's get back to playing the game. It was a correct challenge. Well done, Janie. You have the subject. There are 52 seconds available. A light bulb moment starting now.
Somebody in the BBC production...
Oh, Tony
a stupid, novice.
Oh, you see,
BBC.
Well, yeah, I've been buzzed so many times by saying repetition of B.
Yeah. It's so natural, isn't it, to do it, all right? So, correct challenge.
I am half dead from shame. Well, Nicholas, I've played this game often enough to fall into that trap.
It's not as bad. I was on once, and I was talking about Cilla Black, and I said I enjoy her show Surprise, Surprise.
So, Tony, you had a correct challenge. There are 49 seconds available. A light bulb moment starting now.
How many mice does it take to screw in a light bulb? 2. The mystery is how they got in there in the first place. Now, this is something of a light bulb moment for me. When I first heard that joke, I had another light bulb moment when I realised I could start writing back to all the American child skateboarders who incorrectly actually, come to me thinking I'm Tony Hawk, the skateboarder. So I began composing mails, which I would fire back to them, correcting them on their grammar.
Oh, yes, Jenny challenge.
Just a few thems.
Yes, there were a number of thems, and something else as well, but you didn't spot it. Doesn't matter.
Was it skateboarder?
Anyway, there are 13 seconds. Jenny, you have a correct challenge. You have a light bulb moment. You don't. You have the subject of a light bulb moment. 13 seconds starting now.
Custard cream between 2 biscuits. Who thought of that? What a brilliant light bulb moment. Another one is the duvet. Extraordinary invention.
Right, so, Jenny, you were speaking as Whistle Wind, gained that extra point, and you've now joined Sheila Hancock in the lead. Phill Jupitus, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject, a cultural one, the Colosseum. Tell us something about that in this game, if you can, starting now.
I first attended the Colosseum in Verona to watch a performance of the opera Aida. I'd never seen one before and was very much looking forward to the moment when it would start and I would be in my seat and the players would come to the stage to tell us the tale, which I believe was based initially in Egypt. But there was a storm raging and we were in our seats, all covered up.
Oh, yes.
Seats.
Jenny, you've challenged.
Just double seats.
Yes.
I do need two.
Jenny, a correct challenge. Another point to you. 38 seconds available. The Colosseum starting now.
The Colosseum is a massive ruin in Athens, built originally to house thousands of spectators who would watch...
Tony challenge.
Isn't it in Rome?
Yes.
It's in Rome.
I'm an idiot! I'm an idiot! Don't put that out. Please, will you edit that out? My mother will disown me. I'm never going to get my inheritance.
It's, Jenny, it's a nightclub in Athens.
There is a Colosseum. There's a Colosseum nightclub in Halifax.
And there's a Colosseum in London, but that's a theatre.
I think it's spelt differently, but does it matter?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Oh.
No, well,
So, Tony, that is a correct challenge. You have the point for that, of course. There are 30 seconds still available. The Colosseum is starting now.
oh, what a night we had at the Colosseum nightclub in Halifax. I danced with Jenny Eclair and she swung me around above her head in a Cavalier manner like nothing really mattered in this world anymore. And we began talking about the Colosseum in Rome, which she felt was somewhere else geographically. But the music was so loud she couldn't hear what I was saying, which is a blessing in many occasions.
So Tony Hawkes was in speaking the whistle when gained that extra point. And he's now in the lead with Jenny Eclair. And Jenny, we're with you to begin. Oh, I don't know whether this is your area or not, but they've chosen now for you to talk, if you want or can, knitting. Tell us something about knitting starting now.
Weirdly enough, I took up knitting when I was diagnosed with incredibly high blood pressure, thinking, this'll calm one down. Never underestimate the difficulties, girls, of curving around the heel of a sock on 3 needles with a Fair Isle pattern. Nearly had a palpitation, so now I stick to squares. My favourite stitches include the Andalusian, garter, stockinette, basket weave and Chinese frog. Go me. What I like to do with the finished results, sew them up, make a blanket, donate to a charity shop. That's worth an extra point, I reckon. Other knitting experiments have ended in disaster. My biggest problem until recently, didn't know how to cast off. This is what happens when you're not taught properly. It's like a hole-in-one.
Yes.
Nicholas, it's like a hole-in-one. I've never played a round of golf in my life.
Yeah. That whole Colosseum thing is behind you now.
Yes, well, in this game, whoever is speaking with the whistle goes gains an extra point. And she went for a whole 60 seconds without being interrupting, without hesitation, repetition or deviation. So she gets a point for that and a point for speaking and has increased her lead at the end of the round. Tony Hawkes, we're back with you to begin. The subject now, another phrase, making a U-turn. Tell us something about that in just a minute, starting now.
The lady is not for turning, said Margaret Thatcher, which would have been hugely disadvantageous for her had she appeared on...
Sheila, you challenged.
Well, it was a curious word, wasn't it? Disadvantageous.
Yeah, well, so we say that is deviation from the English language as we understand it. So, Sheila, you have a correct challenge. You have 52 seconds. Tell us something about making a U-turn, starting now.
I have a sat-nav that is constantly asking me to make a U-turn if possible. And it never is. I end up bellowing at this bloody sat-nav.
Phill challenged.
That's a pair of sat-navs there.
Yeah.
There was. So you've got in the subject. There are 38 seconds if you want it. Making a U-turn starting now.
I was a sheep farmer in the mid-1970s, and my job was to go down to the field and get the females to turn around. Now, this job was quite difficult because...
Tony challenged.
I think your repetition of job.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
I did.
you did
I
have
think
a
I
job.
did as well.
Yes.
And
you
also, we didn't want to go any further with that.
I, my friend, beg to differ.
Tony,
Is it true?
Oh, I'm really sorry. I've just shown myself to be stupid on another occasion during this game. I whispered to Phill, "Is it true?" And he looked at me as if to say, "Are you really an idiot or what?" Obviously not.
Anyway, who challenged?
I did.
Tony. There are 25 seconds available. Making a U-turn starting now.
My partner isn't terribly good at making a U-turn in the car. Often she ends up with a double U-turn, or, to be honest, pick your letter. You don't know where she's going. Sometimes she'll back up a little bit, then suddenly accelerate, and then go and apologise to the person whose wall it was. Making a U-turn is something that politicians get into
So Tony Hawkes was then speaking as a whistle went. Gained an extra point. Is now equal with Jenny Eclair in the lead, followed by Sheila, Hancock and Phill Jupitus in that order. Sheila, we're back with you to begin. A lovely subject now, roses. Tell us something about those beautiful blooms in this game, starting now.
Roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. There's been a lot of poetry written about roses, and I do so approve because they are the most beautiful flower in the world. You can get them in any colour, red, blue, white, orange, yellow.
Jenny challenged.
Deviation from nature, no blue roses.
Yeah! There's one called Blue Moon.
I retract my buzzer.
Actually, Jenny, I've got one, yes. It's a sort of
It's
bluey
bluey white. It's beautiful.
And there's a bluey mauve as well.
Oh.
So I think we've got to give her the benefit of the
Yes,
doubt on that one.
absolutely.
And you have an incorrect challenge, Sheila. You keep the subject, 41 seconds. Roses starting now.
I particularly like ones with a perfume. In fact, I don't like them at all. Oh, but...
Oh, Tony.
repetition of like.
Yes. Tony, you had a correct challenge. Roses is still the subject. 35 seconds starting now.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm a schizophrenic, and so am I. Now, roses can often be placed in a row in order to confuse slugs. Not many people know this, and it's never been on Gardener's Question Time, because it's absolute nonsense that I've just made up. That's the reason, and I only fabricated that information because I have such a small amount of knowledge about the subject, roses, compared to my esteemed partner here, Sheila Hancock, who is clearly an expert in this area and knows...
Give him that.
Well, you pressed your buzzer as the whistle went,
Over the
so
line.
Tony gets the benefit of the doubt for speaking as the whistle went and gained an extra point, has increased his lead at the end of the round. And it's your turn to begin, Phill.
Right.
Oh, Nelson's column. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Imagine walking through Trafalgar Square and not seeing Nelson's Column, that great edifice. This has been so much a part of our lives for so long. I once went to... I've done it. Greenhorn error.
yes.
Greenhorn error.
Just a hesitation.
Trafalgar Square.
Hesitation, yes.
You knew what I was going to do, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, stop touching my leg.
Phill said that because they are sitting next to each other.
Oh, he's got very long arms, or I've got very long arms.
Right, well. Jenny, correct challenge. 50 seconds are still available. Tell us something about Nelson's column, starting now.
As we all know, Nelson's Column is in Athens. No, just joking.
Tony, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Of course, yes.
Oh, that was...
Yeah, I think what happened was she started to go, but I think it really is.
You know what? Genuinely, the most embarrassing thing, I actually thought, because, it was built to commemorate Trafalgar. I thought the Battle of Trafalgar had been fought there, quite near Covent Garden. Whether they could nip for a coffee or a lunch.
Darling, you're getting more and more confused now. And, Tony, you challenge first, and you've got 44 seconds. You tell us something about Nelson's column starting now.
Allegedly, Lady Hamilton was very partial to Nelson's column. But that's something that is only rumoured. No one is absolutely sure. Of course, it's in Trafalgar Square. I like to go there and stand beneath it, mocking the pigeons above. I'm not carrying on.
Sheila, you challenged.
He's not carrying on with it, so I thought I'd get in first.
So what was your challenge?
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed. Right. Sheila, you've got the subject of Nelson's column. 26 seconds starting now.
It is a little-known fact that Nelson wrote a column for the Daily Mail. It was difficult for him because he only had one arm and eye. However, he made the effort, and all the dirt of the victory was piled into that paper, and people knew who had had the cat o' nine tails that morning, what Lady Hamilton was going to do to him. Was it the victory he spoke?
It was wonderful. It didn't matter.
So Sheila kept going to the whistle went, being utterly devious all the time, but she got a point for speaking as the whistle went, and she's now equal in second place with Jenny, Eclair, and Tony's just in the lead, and Phil's bringing up the rear very naturally. And no, great aplomb. You're only a point or two behind.
I've got exactly the same amount of points as I get at home. What? I'm not in the game, so I don't have points. It's actually not an R. It was supposed to be a ha-ha moment. That is what I'm bringing to the table.
What are these points
humour.
you get at home? I'm interested.
Exactly, I don't get any because I'm at home. This is a semantic nightmare I've wandered into.
Give Phil a bonus point for that lovely remark he made.
Pity points, I love them.
Jenny, it's your turn to begin. And the subject now, the Laughing Cavalier. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
The Laughing Cavalier is a painting, Dutch in origin, I guess. He's grinning, his moustache is off, and wearing a hat plus lace collar. If you look closely, I choked. I actually choked on some...
You can't choke on just a minute. You're not allowed.
I'm sorry, I did actually.
What a pity. Was it your Coke that choked you?
It was a combination of hay fever and Coca-Cola, but obviously...
He's going to give her a point now. Because he's sorry
Jenny,
for her.
You're playing for sympathy now. And it's not within the rules of just a minute.
Don't worry.
Anyway, Tony, you challenge first.
Yes, so hesitation or choking, whichever one you'd like to go.
It was choking, Tony.
Well, let's have hesitation because it was quite natural. 46 seconds available for you, Tony. The Laughing Cavalier starting now.
The Laughing Cavalier was the car my partner was driving when she was trying to do the U-turn I referred to in a round or two ago, to huge hysterical response from the all.
Sheila challenge.
Deviation, it didn't get a huge hysterical response. It was kind of mediocre.
Yes, Sheila, we agree with the challenge. 32 seconds available. You tell us something about the Laughing Cavalier, starting now.
Well, it's in the Wallace collection, which is near to Broadcasting House, and it's a rather lovely picture, but I don't think he is laughing. It's more a smirk, a bit like the Mona Lisa, who is looking as though she and he, in his turn, wonder why he's sitting there with his funny moustache and hat, and a man is actually deciding that they're going to make this last for the rest of time. He is probably confused, but it's also curious.
Well done, Sheila. Speaking as a whistle win, gained an extra point. She's to move forward. She's one behind her leader, Tony Hawkes, and 2 or 3 ahead of Jenny, Eclair and Phill. Jupitus in that order. And Tony, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now, shampoo. Tell us something about shampoo in this game, starting now.
I don't subscribe to the definition that shampoo is someone pretending to go to the toilet. That's unacceptable, as is cabaret, lots of taxis waiting for you, or chagrin, the smile you have after you've had sex.
No, we've got to stop him. I'm sorry, I don't care. Deviation, hesitation. He's lowering the tone
Sheila,
of the show.
Absolutely.
Bring back Paul.
And Sheila, I'm not only going to say you got a point for a correct challenge, I'm going to give you a bonus point for stopping him.
They've turned against me.
Well, after what you said, I'm surprised there's anybody on your side. Anyway, Sheila, you have the subject now. 42 seconds available. It's shampoo, starting now.
Well, it is something with which you wash your hair. Nothing to do with going to the toilet, as my friend would have it. In fact, there was a very good film called Shampoo, I've suddenly remembered, with Warren Beatty and the beautiful Julie Christie. But as I can't remember much about it, I'm not going to pursue that lie.
Tony challenge.
Repetition of remember.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Staying away from the filth, Tony, if you
okay.
can. There are 24 seconds for you to take up the subject again of shampoo, starting now.
I'm very against shampoo. I think it's been overrated by manufacturers over the years. We don't...
Jenny challenge.
Over and over.
Overrated is one word, isn't it?
Oh, I
It's
didn't know that.
hyphenated.
Yeah, it is.
Over and over.
Can we take that out as well?
No, give her a bonus point, because I think she spotted something there, but it wasn't correct within the rules of just a minute.
Bless
So
you,
Jenny
darling.
gets a bonus point for the over, and Tony keeps the subject with another point because he was interrupted. And there are 19 seconds are left, Tony. Shampoo is starting now.
Next week, I'm going to invite Sheila Hancock round to my house to watch the film Shampoo, starring Warren Beatty.
Sheila, challenge.
Well, I'm not coming.
So as I'm giving out bonus points, give one to Sheila for that. It was a lovely response. There we are. And Tony, you were interrupted, so you get a point for that, of course. And there are 11 seconds still available. Shampoo starting now.
Phil, what are you doing next week? I was wondering if you might...
Who's challenged? Phil's challenged.
I'm coming round your house to watch Shampoo, Tony.
Yes, because actually that remark was deviation, because it's nothing to do with shampoo. Is it coming round to his house?
Wow.
Quickly say yes, Phil.
Yes.
Right.
Deviation.
So, Phil, you've got in very cleverly.
This is a farce.
With 7 seconds to go on shampoo, starting now.
Shampoo is a liquid you apply to your head in the shower in order to wash your hair, which is something that I...
So, Phil was speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and we're moving into the final round. And Phill Jupitus is giving tremendous value, but he's still in fourth place. But he's only just behind Jenny Eclair, who is a point or two behind Sheila Hancock, who's only 1 point behind our leader, who at the present moment is Tony Hawkes. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin. Oh, this is a lovely historical question. Cleopatra. Tell us something about Cleopatra in this game, starting now.
I've always really loved the idea of Cleopatra. Everybody remembers her for her supposed beauty, although some say she wasn't all that ravishing. But she was incredibly intelligent. Apparently, she spoke many languages. Now, although she was Queen of Egypt, I believe she was Greek. We're into the old Colosseum gag if we're not careful. But she fell in love and indeed bewitched Julius Caesar, by whom she had a son, and then Mark Antony and several other people. But I suspect she used her appeal and indeed her glamour. She would sail down the Nile in the most beautiful boats, being fanned by incredibly...
Phil challenged.
Too beautiful.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
It was. It was.
So, Phil, you've got in with 13 seconds to go. Tell us something about Cleopatra, starting now.
Asterix and Cleopatra was one of my favourite books as a child, in which Obelix and his little chum went to Egypt to help the Queen defeat Romans. Yes.
Really sorry, Phil. Really sorry to do that.
Jenny,
to
you challenged first.
Yeah, I did. I challenged because he hesitated.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
And you've got in on the final round with 4 seconds to go. Tell us something about Cleopatra, starting now.
Cleopatra with this all-girl singing group.
Sheila, you got in first.
was a hesitation.
I followed. I don't know what happened then.
Sheila, that was a correct challenge. You've got 1 second to go. On Cleopatra, starting now.
Cleopatra.
So for those of you who are interested in the points, in a brilliant fourth place was Phill Jupitus, and he was only only 2 points behind the person who was in an excellent second place. That was Jenny Eclair, because we have two equal people in the lead. Our joint winners, if you want, this week are Tony Hawks and Sheila Hancock. Only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game: Tony Hawks, Sheila Hancock, Phill Jupitus and Jenny Eclair. And I also thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. We're grateful to our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. So from our audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, thank you, and tune in again when we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you, hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the Minute Waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play Just a Minute. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Fred MacAulay, and seated on my left, Josie Lawrence and James Acaster. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling. She's going to help me run the stopwatch and blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, where we have a very excited, dynamic Fringe audience in front of us, eager to get going. Fred MacAulay would love you to start the show with planning a party. I don't know whether you've planned many, but talk about this if you can, Fred, in 60 seconds available, starting now.
I suppose the first thing you've got to consider when planning a party is location. You might have it in a pub or the house, perhaps even in a street, which I believe is popular where the sun shines. We've seen photographs of such things up here in Scotland. I've not had a party myself for quite some time. I had one for my 50th birthday. That was a number of years ago, and a lot of my good friends turned up, and I said, "No presents, please," and regrettably, they took me at my word.
Paul, you challenged.
A slight pause.
Yeah.
There was a big pause.
Yes, it was.
I think he waited for the laugh and thought he was going to go on.
No.
Just trying to make us feel guilty for not bringing him any presents. I didn't even get an invite. I don't know about the rest of you.
Paul, a correct challenge, another point to you. And there are 33 seconds available. Planning a party, starting now.
Well, several things are important. The guest list, the location, perhaps even a theme. If it's a fancy dress, make sure that everybody understands exactly what the rules are. Don't say, "Come as Godzilla," but don't tell 2 people, because they will find themselves in a very embarrassing position where they go to this party and they see loads of Godzillas all around them, and they say to themselves, if only we had got that email, we wouldn't be dressed here as James Bond and Kitty McShane. Who's Kitty McShane, I hear you ask?
James, you've challenged.
Repetition of Godzilla, I think.
Yes, that's right, you think.
Godzilla and Godzillas.
Yes.
Right, basically, what happened there, I was pretty sure that it was Godzilla and Godzillas, and then you, real twisting my arm, Parsons.
I did say Godzilla and Godzillas.
Yes.
But I did repeat Kitty McShane.
Yes.
I'm going to say Kitty McShane.
Yes. Definitely.
All right, James, a point to you, because you listened well.
Oh, no, that means it's me now, doesn't it?
Yes.
I withdraw my objection.
I wouldn't bother. You've only got 5 seconds to go.
Easy, and it's about parties, am I right?
Yes. So you've got another point. You've got 5 seconds if you need it. Planning a party is starting now.
I like to buy party poppers for parties. Often it's very nice to let them...
Paul challenge.
There was two ers in 5...
Yeah.
It did
There were
hesitate.
2 ers. And you said parties, and the subject of the thing is planning a party. You put the plural in instead of the singular. It's a tough game. You got back in again, Paul. Correct challenge. A point. And there's half a second to go. Planning a party starting now.
So I turned to Nicholas third, didn't I?
So Paul, speaking of the whistle, well, and get an extra point. And James Acaster, we begin with you on this round. A nice topical Edinburgh subject. Burke and Hare. I hope you know something about them, because you can talk on the subject. 60 seconds as usual if you want it. Starting now.
James Burke and William Hare were two rotters, horrible gentlemen, who would murder people by killing them. Often, they would...
Josie, you challenged.
Hesitation.
Do you normally speak with such hesitation?
Yes.
Right, Josie, a correct challenge. 45 seconds available. Can you tell us something about Burke and Hare, starting now?
I'm afraid I know very little about Burke and Hare, other than they were people that were sent out to collect body parts for scientists and ended up making their money by killing the people, as you said. It was made into a film a couple of years ago. I know because my friend was in it. She got cast as the lady that gave them a dirty look. Andy Serkis played Burke or Hare, I'm not sure. But surely such terrible villains would not be walking this earth if it wasn't for the good people of that Scottish community that put them away. A policeman, I forget his name, saw them walking...
Paul challenge.
George. That was his name.
We enjoyed the interruption, Paul. We'll give you a bonus point for that. Josie, you've still got the subject, and a point for being interrupted. 7 seconds still available. Burke and Hare, starting now.
On that day when Burke and Hare were taken to court, people were filing up outs.
Paul challenge.
Did we have people before?
Yes, you had a lot of people before.
We did.
Yes, you did. Yes, indeed.
I did quite well, considering I know nothing about
Yeah. So, Paul, you cleverly got him again with 1 second to go. Well,
I'm as disappointed as you are.
Those are the rules of the game. Burke and Hare, Paul, 1 second starting now.
So I turned to Nicholas third.
Yes, there we are. So Paul now is equal in the lead with Josie. Lawrence, there is a little rhyme because Burke and Hare used to get the bodies for Dr. Knox.
That's it. Yeah.
He was the famous physician.
Isn't there a poem or a rhyme or something?
There is the one. It was in a play I did by James Bridie called A Sleeping Clergyman. And there was this famous little poem which may amuse you. It said, up the close and do the stair, bend the house with Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, and Knox the boy who buys the beef. And I haven't said that for 60 years, so it's not bad, is it? Josie, it's your turn to begin. Oh, Josie, an interesting subject here.
Yeah.
Weeds. Many ways you can take that. Any way you wish now, starting now.
Flobbered-up, wobbered-up, nobbered-up, shop.
Paul challenge.
Repetition of blah, 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 blah.
No, because it's two different words.
I know.
Flobbered-up and wobbered-up.
I know it was two different words. Very clever. You know, the...
I don't know what we're talking about.
Watch with Mother in black and white.
I think we're talking about weed singular.
Yes, good point, actually.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, Josie. No. You didn't repeat what you said. And it was an incorrect challenge, so you've still got the subject. A point to you, 57 seconds, weeds, starting now.
Bill and Ben were my favourite, and that's how I was first introduced to Little Weed. And after that, I loved weeds, especially dandelions. They say if you pick those, you'll wet the bed. And that lovely milky stuff in the stalk, and the way they go all fluffy and you make a clock. Also, buttercups. Why are they weeds? They're gorgeous. Bindweed, on the other hand, is bloody awful. I've got it in my garden, strangling my bamboo. Thistles, nettles, ooh, they sting. But weeds can't help being weeds. I like to think of them as just independent flora. They pop up anywhere, like old ex-boyfriends you're not expecting to meet in the club. I love weeds, everything about them. But there is one particular weed, Japanese knot.
Paul challenge.
Weed.
Did we have repetition of weed?
We did, and the subject is actually weeds.
I know.
And you put the singular in.
I know, it's sad, isn't it, really?
Paul, you got in the game with 1 second to go. But those are the rules of the game. So under that, I have to say, Paul, a correct challenge. Well done. Another point. Weeds is with you, starting now.
Nicholas Sturgeon, turn to me.
So Paul Merton has increased his lead at the end of that round, and actually, Paul, it's your turn to begin again. Oh, another topical local subject. What makes haggis so delicious? Talk on that subject, Paul. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, of course, the neeps and tatties are very much part of the whole experience. I do enjoy haggis. I don't have it back in London. You can't often get it. But up here, of course, it's a regular dish on many fancy and also cheaper restaurants. And I also enjoy the...
Oh, Josie listened well.
Repetition of also.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, listen, Josie, you got back. 46 seconds. What makes haggis so delicious? Starting now.
What makes haggis so delicious, I believe, is everything. Every single ingredient. The stomach lining, the meat itself, and the...
Fred challenge.
I'm afraid there's no meat in haggis.
I'm going to start calling you Thistle because you've really stung me.
Pricked.
I wasn't going to say that.
Well, we all learn things, don't we?
Our gran used to always put a bit of chopped mince in with it.
Heathen.
So Fred's got another point, and he's got the subject. What makes haggis so delicious? 37 seconds available, starting now.
Without doubt, it's the anticipation which is helped by Rabbie Burns' address to the haggis. Fair fa your on his sonsy face. Great chieftain o' the puddin' race. Abun them all, you tack your place. Pain, stripe or therm, and wheeler you worthy.
James Chance.
All of that sounded the same to me.
Well said. I tell you what, we'll give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption, James. But actually, someone who's partly Scottish, it was absolutely perfect Burns. It was exciting. So, Fred, an incorrect challenge. You still got the subject. What makes haggis so delicious? And there are 22 seconds available, starting now.
I guess the lung performs a great part of the haggis.
Oh, Josie challenge.
I should have just gone back to the bloody poem.
Yeah, you should.
Josie, you challenge, right.
Hesitation.
It was, yes, right. Another point to you, Josie. 18 seconds still available. What makes haggis so delicious?
Our grandad used to have haggis on toast. Now, I know that's not particularly a Scottish thing either, but he did always enjoy the wonderful...
Paul, you've challenged.
Yes, a bit of a sort of hesitation.
We call that hesitation.
I was trying to say mastication.
Yes. But it's good that he can do it at that age. With his own teeth.
So, Paul, correct challenge of 6 seconds.
There's a second to go.
No, it's more than that.
You've got 6 seconds to go. What makes haggis so delicious? Paul, starting now.
As I looked into the eyes of the chef, I realised he was preparing something very special. I dug my knife...
So once again, Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went and get an extra point. He's equal in the lead with Josie Lawrence and trailing a little are James Acaster and Fred MacAulay, both equal in second place. And Fred, we're back with you to begin. And we go from haggis, believe it or not, to Tokyo. 60 seconds are available, Fred. Tokyo starting now.
Tokyo's on my bucket list, but I've never been yet. But what I do know about the place is that there can't be a castle or a big wheel, judging by the reaction of the Japanese tourists around Edinburgh at this time of year. What I would say about Tokyo is if you are planning to have a party, it's important to think about the location and your guests. You might want to have it in a street even, or a pub or a house. I'm waffling, and I think you probably realised that.
Paul challenge.
Self-confessed waffling.
Yeah.
And And a bit of hesitation.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of hesitation. All right,
Yes.
Paul, 36 seconds available.
Oh, 36 seconds?
36, yes.
Blimey.
Starting now.
Godzilla was in a foul mood. He stood on the mountainside looking down on the landscape of Tokyo and said to himself, I am going to destroy this city. He marched forward as much as a man can in a rubber suit pretending to be this alien monster, and he came up towards the first building, picked it up in his claw-like hands and took a huge chunk out of the National Bank of Tokyo. There was a run on the stock exchange. People were talking to each other about stocks and shares. Should I sell?
Oh, James challenged.
I realised as soon as I buzzed I got it wrong.
Why?
I thought it was repetition of stock, but he said stocks the second
Stocks
time.
and shares, yes.
Yeah.
Paul, 3 seconds available. And we're still on Tokyo, starting now.
I turned to Nicola Sturgeon. I said, have you ever been to Tokyo before? She said, no.
So Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle, when gained the extra point. He's increased his position there. He's just ahead of Josie Lawrence, and then come Fred MacAulay and James Acaster in equal in third place. And James, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is a man in uniform. Tell us something about that subject in this game, if you can, starting now.
Back in the olden days, people didn't used to wear uniforms. Everyone would come to work in mufti, and you'd have to go in and say, do you work here? Because you wouldn't know who was employed and who was not. And I made eye contact with a man and got lost in his eyes.
Josie, you challenge first.
Hesitation,
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
There are 44 seconds still available for you, Josie, having got another point. Tell us something about a man in uniform, starting now.
I'm a bit of a sucker when it comes to a man in uniform. I remember once getting a ring stuck on my finger, having to go to the fire station to get it sawn off. Well, that was my excuse. Anyway, there's something about a fireman, his shiny helmet, his hose, I don't know. Also a policeman or anyone in the armed forces, the RAF. My mum was in the WAFs and she has an album of all these men in uniform. They are gorgeous. A doctor in a white coat with a stethoscope around his neck. I suppose that's considered a uniform in a kind of way. And also even a scoutmaster. Something about their top...
So Josie Lawrence kept going to the whistle when gained that extra point for doing so, and she's creeping up on our leader, Paul Merton, and also Josie. It's your turn to begin. Perfume. Tell us something about perfume in this game, starting now.
The perfume you wear, I suppose. It says something about you, your signature, and it changes over the years. When I was young, I'd wear sweet-smelling perfumes like raspberry sorbet or strawberries and cream. There'd be lots of sickly little girls walking about school. Then when I became a punk, I would always have a perfume called Gash that you got from a shop in Wells Hand in London. But my mother always had Blenheim Bouquet, and I'm moving that way myself now. At the moment, I don't know if you can smell me from where you are, my darling.
Paul challenge.
Yes.
So it was a lovely interruption, Paul. I don't know whether it's a correct challenge or not.
I don't think it is a correct challenge.
And dear Josie has got another point. And 23 seconds available, Josie. Perfume starting now.
Alien, that's what I wear. Oh, it's so musky. I also have in my house a perfume ghost. Does anyone else in the audience experience things like this? Suddenly, in the living room, there is an aroma of rose. Now, in the deeds to my house, a single woman...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of house.
Yeah, we've got the
Absolutely.
house there, yes. And Paul, you've got in with the correct challenge. You've got 3 seconds if you want it. But that is the game. And you've got perfume if you want it, starting now.
Nicola was wet.
Fred is challenged.
Repetition of Nicola.
I've been saying it at the end of every round. But
Right.
I didn't repeat it that time.
Sturgeon. You didn't repeat
Not that
it.
time.
No, I know that.
No.
I just thought I would do it for a laugh.
Then,
Paul, you've got another point. And you have 2 seconds available. Perfume starting now.
her perfume was Midnight in Dockland.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, has increased his lead at the end of that round ahead of Josie Lawrence and James Acaster and Fred MacAulay in that order. And we're back with you, Fred. A brief history of time. 60 seconds if you want it. A brief history of time starting now.
A Brief History of Time is a book written by Professor Sir Stephen Hawking, which I tried to read, and it instilled in me a feeling that time can stand still. Happened when I was reading the book. It's happening right now as well.
James, you've challenged.
Repetition of book.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, James.
Well done.
Not as impressive now, is it? First time you're like, what? And now it's like, no, I was playing dumb at the beginning. We don't like this.
James, well done. Another point to you. And you have 46 seconds if you need it.
Yes.
A brief history of time starting now.
Stephen Hawking, of course, there's a biopic made of him called The Theory of Everything.
Fred challenged.
It was a double whammy. It was a repetition of and ergo a hesitation.
I don't think you need rub it in like that.
Nicholas, I've seen the score sheet. Trust me, I do.
I know, but James has never played the game before. But anyway.
And I was about to say, early reviews were very good of the film.
Fred, you have the correct challenge. You have a point. You have 41 seconds. A brief history of time starting now.
I'm not very good at physics, never was. I really struggled with many things when I was younger. Chemistry, biology, but all of them paled into insignificance.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation as he relived a deep trauma.
Well expressed, Paul.
Can you come up with a new game called Just 10 Seconds?
Yeah. I don't mind playing that.
Paul, there are still 30 seconds available. You tell us something about a brief history of time starting now.
This sentence is approximately 3 seconds long. The end.
James, you challenged. Yes.
No.
Don't be too honest.
I don't think... I feel I was playing with it.
So, Josie, it was your challenge.
The hesitation.
Yes, I was going to generously give it to James, and he hadn't done very much. But you're so honest, James, I have to go accurately with Josie's challenge and say, what was it, Josie?
Hesitation.
Hesitation is correct. And you have 26 seconds. You tell us something about a brief history of time starting now.
I really don't know what to say about a brief history of time, apart from, I suppose, really, it's there and then it's over somewhere else. Like a linear path, a time-space anomaly. Time itself is relative when it comes to sitting, drinking tea, or just staring into space. But if...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of space.
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes.
I'm so glad you stopped me because I hadn't a clue what I was on about.
Do you know, it didn't show.
Welcome to my world.
Paul, you've got the subject back again. A brief history of time. 7 seconds are still available, starting now.
As I watched the second hand make its progress around the dial, I realised that I was in the grip of a demon that would never let me...
So, Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went. Gained that extra point, has increased his lead at the end of the round, ahead of Josie Lawrence and the other two. Here are their names, James Acaster and Fred MacAulay. And James Acaster, we're back with you to begin. A lovely subject, keeping fish. Tremendous scope there. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
When keeping fish, it's very important to choose the correct container. I like to have a tank. Some people, cages were a very bad idea in the early days. People use cage...
Josie challenge.
I was going to say cake.
Repetition, I think, of cages.
Yes, cages. There we are. Josie, you've got 49 seconds if you wanted. Keeping fish, starting now.
Keeping fish should never be mistaken for keeping mum. Now, my mum and dad bought me a...
Oh, Paul challenge, yes.
Repetition of mum.
Yes, everybody spotted it. Mum.
Oh, my God!
Yes. Keeping mum, my mum and dad.
I know, it's true.
Mum, yes, it's true. And 44 seconds are still available. Paul, keeping fish, starting now.
About 10, 15 years ago, I kept fish. I had a puffer, and he was particularly jolly because they've got quite big brains, that breed of fish. And he was so smart that when I would go to the refrigerator to get where his food was, he would swim up and down excitedly, realising, a bit like a dog, that you're going to feed him at that particular point. And I loved this animal. He was superb. He would follow your finger around the tank, and it was, in the end, I thought, a bit of a shame seemed to keep him so enclosed? Because although the water receptacle...
Oh, Josie challenged first, yes.
He went the water receptacle.
Yes, definitely.
But can I say, I met Paul's puffer, and it was a beautiful creature.
He was lovely.
Beautiful creature.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he was...
Gorgeous.
I never keeps puffer fish, but they are extremely intelligent.
Josie, you
yes,
had a
lovely.
correct challenge. And there are 14 seconds available. Keeping fish starting now.
Keeping fish is very difficult, especially when you win them at a fun fair in a plastic bag with water in, obviously. Now, my parents changed one particular goldfish 5 times and...
So Josie Lawrence, speaking as a whistle when, gained an extra point, and she has leapt forward. And so we move into the final round. Josie, it's your turn to begin. Whisky. Oh, I love my whisky, I can tell you that. I could do the weed ram right now, I think. Anyway, Josie, the subject is whisky. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I'm kind of nervous about talking about whiskey in Scotland, especially after the terrible mistake I made was pointed out to me by lovely Fred about how meat was in haggis. But whiskey is particularly fond in my heart because Mum always had it with hot water for night time. She swore that's what made her live until she was 92. Now, purists would hate the fact that she had H2O in the whiskey, but all I know is that there are single malts, other malts. You can have... I'm so pleased that's over. I said all that without taking a breath because I was so nervous.
You did very well. You went for 30 seconds.
Did I?
Yes, so that means there's 30 seconds still available. For Paul, your challenge.
A repetition of malts.
Yes, indeed, yes. So another point to you. 30 seconds. Whisky, starting now.
Like Josie, I don't have a particularly encyclopedic knowledge on the subject, but I do know that the Scots think of whisky as being medicine. Whatever's the matter with you, a headache, a divorce, a good drop of whisky will sort you out. And that's some reason why, of course, why their marriages did break up, because one of them was rather fond of the bottle. But whiskey, for me, is a peaty smell, the aroma of centuries past. Fred MacAulay's ancestors with their bared, hairy knees sticking out of you.
Fred challenge.
I was going to say he didn't have bare, hairy knees.
Yeah, it's just deviation. We didn't have hairy knees. Knees were bald, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen hair on a knee.
Have you not?
Never seen hair on a knee? You haven't lived.
There's a lady in the front row whose trouser rolled up. I saw that.
She's won competitions.
Sorry, sir. My apologies.
Fred, correct challenge. You have 4 seconds. Whisky, starting now.
I thoroughly recommend the Scotch whisky experience, which is 14 years of...
So it only remains for me to give you the final score. James Acaster, who hasn't played before, came in a very strong 4th position. But only 1 point ahead was Fred MacAulay, who has played it before, and he's always great value when he's here. Then we had the lovely Josie Lawrence, who's always wonderful, not only in presence and personality, but in her contribution to the show. She should have a round of applause. If you clap the other two, clap her, please. But out in the lead, a few points ahead of them all, was Paul Merton, so we give him the winner accolade. Paul Merton! We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 magnificent players of the game. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the stopwatch and blown her whistle so delicately when the 60 seconds had elapsed. We thank our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game, and we're deeply indebted to this lovely audience here at the Festival Fringe at the James Herriot School. And to our listeners, please tune in again the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. And also to welcome to the programme four exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play Just a Minute. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Janie Godley, and seated on my left, Paul Sinner and Mark Watson. Please welcome all four of them. And as usual, I am going to ask them to speak on a subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling. She's going to run the stopwatch for me, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. And we have a lovely, hyped-up Festival Fringe audience in front of us. So we'll start the show with Janie. Oh, a nice romantic subject here. Rapunzel. Will you tell us something about that romantic fairy story character? 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Rapunzel McNamara was the lassie of Castlemilk who had bright red hair, lived in the high flats, and used to often shout to the children down the stairs, "Do you want a jelly piece? I can put it down on my red spiky plait." The children would scream up and she would put bread, tasty treats, jammy dodgers, Swiss rolls, biscuits, rolls...
Paul Sinner, you've challenged
I think there might have been a repetition of rolls.
There was indeed. We loved all that Glaswegian nonsense you gave us, Jane. Right, Paul, correct challenge. 36 seconds are still available for you on Rapunzel, starting now.
Unfortunately for me, I know very little about Rapunzel as it falls into the category of children's literature. I know nothing about Harry Potter. I know even less about Lord of the...
Paul Merton challenge.
A repetition of no.
Right, Paul, a correct challenge. Point for us for a correct challenge. 27 seconds are available. Rapunzel, starting now.
Henry VIII had gone off Anne Boleyn. He was looking at Rapunzel. He thought, here is a woman, somebody who can give me a child, a baby boy perhaps that can follow in my footsteps. And other people said to him, listen, you must obey what you do, but that doesn't make it... Which, of course, is medieval English, which nobody has understood at the time.
Paul Sinner, you've challenged.
I don't think that was medieval English. I think that was quite clearly hesitation.
I don't think I hesitated. I was talking about
I
didn't really a category for what that was.
No, he didn't hesitate.
It just wasn't English anymore.
Medieval blah blah.
Yeah, which is repetition.
You can have deviation from English as we understand it, but it's a bit late now. You give me one challenge. So should we give it to our first-time player of the game, Mark Watson?
Why not?
Why not?
There's a number of good reasons why not.
No, we'll give Paul. Paul Sinner gets a point for a correct challenge. And there are 12 seconds still available.
12 seconds.
12 seconds, yes. Rapunzel, starting now.
Rapunzel, of course, was famous for having very long hair, which she was able to let down in an advantageous manner in order to secure escape from... I don't really know what it was that Rapunzel did, but she had ever such long...
So Mark Watson was in speaking of the whistle when, again that extra point for doing so. And Mark, it's actually your turn to begin. Scrabble. Can you talk about Scrabble or unscrabble? 60 seconds, starting now.
The letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, and so on are all featured in the popular board game Scrabble, in which people can...
Paul Sinner, challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes.
I was wondering... I mean, I probably could have done the whole alphabet, and it would have been technically admissible, but it wouldn't have been all that popular. But when it got to P, I almost felt I was overcommitted, really.
Paul Sinner, a correct challenge. A point to Paul there. And Scrabble's with you, Paul, and it's 42 seconds available, starting now.
The great misconception about Scrabble is it involves making long words, but the real skill is the two-letter versions. It's difficult to remember what they actually mean, but I have a popular mnemonic to make you memorise the two...
Paul Merton, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. There are 29 seconds still available. You tell us something about Scrabble, starting now.
Henry VIII and Rapunzel were playing Scrabble one night, and he suddenly put down a three-letter word. But she didn't want to argue with me. He was the monarch of the land. But Rapunzel went home that night, and she said to her family, little children lying around, Bert, Tom, Alice, PQRST. They were all there as children, and she said to them, I have brought you succour.
Mark, you've challenged.
I think there was a repetition of children.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Mark.
Absolutely.
And you've got the subject back with you, Scrabble, and you have 11 seconds if you need it, starting now.
The different letters each carry a point value. For example, if you were to spell a word with a number of unusual characters in it.
Paul challenged.
Well, there's a lot of ers.
There was a lot of ers in there.
Two-letter words.
I put the ers down to the fact that I wasn't sure what to say, which I suppose is part of the game, really.
Paul Merton, you had a correct challenge, and you've got him with 2 seconds to go. Scrabble, Paul, starting now.
The two letters that I...
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went. Gained that extra point for doing so. He's now equal with Paul Sinnop, and Mark has got 2 points. Jane is yet to score. And Paul Sinnop, we'd like you to begin the next round. The Acropolis. And there are 60 seconds if you want it. Paul, starting now.
Across the globe are a collection of great cities which have come to be symbolised by a single monument. Paris has the Eiffel Tower, San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. Edinburgh has its truly iconic drug rehabilitation centre. With Athens, it is the Acropolis, an underwhelming hill with a massive temple built for the goddess Athena. But you go there, you walk the streets and you realise, did this place ever be the cradle of civilization? I'm not so sure. Choking...
So, Mark, you're listening well. You're getting the teal again. You challenged first.
I thought it was hesitation.
You definitely were right. And you have 31 seconds if you need it. The Acropolis, starting now.
The Acropolis was built ever such a long time ago. It would be nice if I knew how lengthy a period...
Paul, challenge first.
I think that was an
There's definitely an
And I think we've decided that represents some form of hesitation.
I know. So, Paul Sinner, correct challenge, a point to you, 26 seconds. More about the Acropolis, starting now.
I think for the public who live in Greece's largest metropolis, the Acropolis represents a panacea for their ills because they're basically juggling financial catastrophe and an addiction to aniseed-flavoured alcoholic spirits. They need something to raise their mood, and the Acropolis is very much that something.
Janie, you challenged.
There was a wee bit of hesitation.
I think it was.
But it was really good. I was loving it. I was being educated.
Well, you've got 8 seconds, and you tell us something about the Acropolis, starting now.
The Acropolis is a pub just off the Gallagate in Glasgow. It sells an amazing array of pies, stews, lots of rolls. Everybody loves the karaoke.
So Janie Godley was speaking as the whistle went. Again, that extra point. She's creeping up on Mark, who's one ahead of her. And then there comes Paul Merton, one ahead, and then Paul Sinner, one ahead in that sequence. And Mark Watson, we're back with you to begin. Coco Chanel.
This should be a double.
60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
Before Coco Chanel began her illustrious career in fashion, nobody had any clothes at all. She was the first person to think that it would be a good idea for people to wear things. And that's why she was able to carve out such a niche in what was a market that didn't currently exist before...
Janie, you had a huge challenge. What was it?
It just kind of went off the rails a wee
No,
bit.
he
I don't know what the thing they call it is.
Oh, it was definitely hesitation because I didn't say anything for about 10 seconds. Yeah.
Janie, correct challenge. Coco Chanel's the subject. 44 seconds available, starting now.
Coco Chanel is my hero. As you can see, that I wear her clothes all the time. I go down all the shops and make sure that all the money I've ever owned is spent on Coco Chanel. The red coat, the red jacket, the bags, the shoes. Red!
Paul, you challenge first.
Colour coordination.
Yes, right, red. There are still 32 seconds, Paul. You tell us something about Coco Chanel, starting now.
Coco the Clown was an immensely popular figure in the 1950s and 60s, and he had his own radio channel, and he used to broadcast to children like myself who would listen at home to the antics of his glorious mannequin.
Janie, you challenged.
That's Coco Channel, not Coco Chanel.
I'm sorry, I've made the most glaring mistake. You know, I think it's the way I wrote it down.
That's the fake perfume that my friends used to sell.
And you're wearing Coco Chanel at the moment, are you?
Janie, we give it to you with 19 seconds to go. And another point, Coco Chanel, starting now.
Coco Chanel had an amazing haircut. I was very jealous of it. It was smooth, it was bobbed, it looked like it would always sit so beautiful. My hair just looks like somebody has brushed it with a toffee apple. Coco Chanel was so beautiful.
Paul Sinner challenge.
I'm going to say that Hare is a repetition on the grounds that hairstyle, hair...
I
think you might be right.
I think we're being a bit pedantic now, Paul.
Is that not the point of the game, Nicholas?
No, no. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Janie. I will redress the balance if I can by giving you the benefit some other time. But Janie, there are still 8 seconds.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about Coco Chanel, starting now.
Coco Chanel has got a hot dog stand just off the Royal Mile. Her other name is Margaret McDougall. Her brother is called Stephen McDougall.
Oh, Paul.
Well, I think if she's going to get a point for pointing out that the Coco Channel is not the same as the Coco Chanel, then I should get a point by saying that this is not true at all. This is absolute nonsense.
I'm now going to give you, Paul, say no more. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt now. Right. And you've got the subject, and you've got half a second to go. Coco Chanel, starting now.
Brian.
So it's a very even contest if you're interested in the points. Mark Watson's training just 2 points behind Paul Merton and Janie Godley, and they're 2 points behind Paul Sinner. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. A sticky wicket. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
A sticky wicket is one of the great linguistic foibles of the English language that derives from the sport of cricket. If anyone should know, this is our celebrated host, Nicholas Parsons, as he's currently 93 not out in a quite magnificent innings.
Paul challenge.
Hesitation amongst the gasps.
So beautiful too.
You're very generous. You played for the audience reaction, you got it, but you paused in the process, which is...
It's almost as though I'm terrible at this game, Nicholas.
No, it was a very generous, warm gesture towards me. Give them both a point. A correct challenge from Paul, warmth from Paul Sinner, and we'll leave it with you, Paul Sinner. 45 seconds still available. A sticky wicket starting now.
Other catchphrases from the world of my favourite pastime include bowling a googly and the cock is caught in the gully yet again.
Paul Merton challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, there was a hesitation there.
Was indeed.
Paul, a correct challenge. Paul Merton, 36 seconds still available. A sticky wicket starting now.
In the days of uncovered wickets, you would get a shower of rain, and that would affect the quality of the wicket, and that's where
Mark challenge.
It was a repetition of wicket, but it is, of course, part of the actual subject.
Yes, you can repeat what's on the card.
Yes. I mean, I'm making a number of beginner's errors.
It's expected that you do make beginner's errors, but...
Yes. Now and again, it's nice just to press your buzzer as well. I feel alive.
It isn't, actually. It holds the game up. So, Paul Merton, you still have the subject. And there are 30 seconds left. A sticky wicket starting now.
When you are in a situation you're not quite sure how it's going to turn out and there may be problems inherently involved in the entire escapade, you can say, I'm on a sticky wicket. You're not quite sure which way the ball is going to go. Will it bounce right, left, or carry straight on? So decisions have to be made sometimes at the very last second. The bowler may be looking strong from a village somewhere in England where they turn out these powerful, strong individuals.
Oh, Mark challenge.
I think there was a repetition of strong, and if so, it's my first successful challenge in over 10 years. And my finger was trembling on the buzzer.
Yes. 4 seconds for you, Mark, on a sticky wicket starting now.
A sticky wicket, a problematic situation, a conundrum, a difficult...
So Mark Watson was speaking then as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and Paul Merton, we're back with you to begin. The subject is P.G. Wodehouse. Tell us something about that amazing author, starting now.
P.G. Wodehouse wrote many books, but I'm of the opinion that perhaps he might have been better to write several less, because very many... Oh, no, this is terrible.
Oh. Janie, you challenge first.
Repetition.
Many, yes, it's Easy thing to do in just a minute. 52 seconds available, Janie. P.G. Wodehouse, starting now.
P.G. Wodehouse is my favourite writer. All of his books are on the shelves in my house in Glasgow. Every day I wake up and I think, what book will I pick today?
Mark challenge.
Repetition books.
No,
What's your favourite title?
no, she said books and book.
I think there's some controversy in the room.
What was your challenge, Jennifer?
Well, I said book and books, but which are not identical words, but they certainly do have something in common.
One's a plural and the other's a single.
I suppose, yeah. You remember when you were giving people the benefit of the doubt? When does mine come round?
I will tell you what I'll do now. I will give you a bonus point for what you've just said. It was a lovely remark.
Oh, thank you.
But Janie, it was an incorrect challenge. You've still got P.G. Wodehouse, and there are 43 seconds starting now.
P.G. Wodehouse wrote Jeeves in Worcester. I know that because Paul Merton just told me. This makes me the happiest lady sitting at a table in a tent in the Edinburgh Festival. My literary knowledge isn't always the best. I only know one piece of literature, and it's the book I wrote myself. Everything else is just...
Paul Merton
You
challenge.
have strayed from P.G. Wodehouse.
Yes,
Yes, we're on to the book you wrote yourself. So, Paul, a correct challenge. You take over the subject. 27 seconds available. P.G. Wodehouse, starting now.
He lived to an extraordinary age, the same decade as Nicholas Parsons is currently achieving. And if you think that he was 23 when the Edinburgh Festival started 70 years ago, it shows our chairman is here to stay. P.G. Wodehouse, Pelham Grenville were the initials, not the initials, because P.G.'s the initials.
Paul Finner challenge.
Initials, repetition.
Yes, repetition of initials. So, you've got him with 11 seconds to go. P.G. Wodehouse, starting now.
P.G. Wodehouse was an alumnus of the public school in South London called Dulwich College, where I attended many years ago, and...
Paul Merton
You
challenge.
didn't pay enough attention in the English lessons.
Paul, correct challenge. There are still 3 seconds for you. P.G. Wodehouse, starting now.
Blandings Castle is one of the great literary creations of the 20th...
So Paul Merton was then speaker as the whistle went. Gained that extra point, and he's increased his position. He's 2 ahead of Paul Sinner, and the other 2 follow a point or 2 adrift. And Janie, we're back with you to begin. My favourite spice. 60 seconds, starting now.
My favourite spice is curry. My maiden name is actually Curry, but it's spelt different, so you can't press the buzzer on that.
I disagree. Repetition of curry.
She did repeat the word curry, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
afraid.
it was 2 different curries, because
So
curry's
I-
R-R-Y,
was it?
and my maiden name is Curry, C-U-R-R-I-E.
I know, but we don't go by the literary thing. It's a verbal thing.
Okay.
It's a
I've
verbal...
learnt my lesson.
No. Janie, I have to be fair to everybody. It's a verbal game, so we go by the verbal sound. And so Paul did have a correct challenge. 54 seconds for you, Paul, on my favourite spice, starting now.
I think Janie should have the subject back, and if she buzzes now, she'll get it. Did you buzz?
She did, yeah. It shows you the generosity of Paul Merton in this game. And there are 50 seconds available. My favourite spice, starting now.
My favourite spice is Old Spice. The scent makes you remember of men who have got hairy chests and white suits and they live in a static caravan or a hut. The smell of it makes me happy, and I always think of the 1970s. He's got a lava lamp, he's got a greyhound, he's got a park outside him.
Paul Merton challenge.
Yeah.
He's got a...
He's got a...
He has,
Sadly.
yes. 34 seconds, Paul. My favourite spice, starting now.
And I'm going to give Janie another chance to buzz in.
Janie, what was your challenge? Hesitation.
Hesitation.
Well done,
yeah.
yes. You were so much on the ball, Janie. We love your spontaneity.
She's too good for me.
Yes.
Anyway, Janie, it's 31 seconds, still available. My favourite spice, starting now.
Turmeric is my favourite spice. It makes me happy, tingles on the tongue, makes meat quite colourful.
Mark challenge.
Makes repeated.
Makes, yes, you did
What's
make
wrong
them.
with me?
So, Mark, you listened well. You've got in with 25 seconds to go. Tell us something about my favourite spice, starting now.
I think the appropriate thing to do is allow Janie the chance to buzz in.
But Paul Merton challenge first.
She'll have to be quicker than that. Hesitation.
Yes, you're right, Paul.
Yeah.
Your generous gesture, Mark, went in the wrong direction. Paul Merton, 22 seconds available. My favourite spice, starting now.
Marshmallows. These can all be... I thought something full.
Paul Sinner, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Right, thank you very much. So you've got 18 seconds, Mark, on my favourite spice, starting now.
My favourite spice would have to be cumin. I don't know exactly what it does, but you know when it's in a curry, you're going to have a marvellous time.
Paul Sinner challenge.
No. The repetition of the word no. I don't know what it does, but you know...
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a shame that, because you're not allowed to do that within the rules
So,
of the game.
Paul Sinner, you've got the subject back again. 12 seconds are still available. My favourite spice, starting now.
My favourite spice is the finest pub off the Gallowgate in Glasgow. It serves all manner of curries, including korma, dupiazza, tikka masala...
Oh... Mark's challenge, Mark Watson.
I would say there was a hesitation, but it was a minimal one.
No, it wasn't big enough for that.
It wasn't big enough. Sometimes I don't think I sell myself hard enough.
If we challenged on minimal hesitations, we'd never get going at all, would we? So incorrect. So, Paul Sinner, you have another point. You've got 4 seconds on my favourite spice, starting now.
1996 was, of course, the annus mirabilis of the Spice Girls.
So, for those interested in the points, the situation is very interesting. Paul Sinner had the lead. He's now 1 point behind Paul Merton, who's in the lead, and they're closely followed by Janie Godley and Mark Watson in that order. And Mark Watson, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is something you need in this show, survival skills. 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
What does it mean to have survival skills? Well, broadly speaking, it just constitutes not dying. That's what we mean, ultimately, by the business of survival. However, in recent years, an industry has sprung up around the...
Paul Sinner challenge.
I'll be kind and say there was a repetition of mean earlier, but there was a hesitation there as well.
So, by kind, you mean I'll be quite unkind, really?
Yeah.
Not only successfully challenged me, but pointed out other ways in which I'm inferior.
I think he was going so fast because he was nervous. It's the first time he's played the game that he sort of went like that.
I thought perhaps if I just drew one word out over a minute, that would do the business.
Yeah. So I
would say I've disguised my nerves.
I couldn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I've given you a benefit of the doubt, haven't I, Paul?
Yes, you did. Yeah,
I did give you a benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt now.
Thank you very much.
50 seconds are available still. Survival skills starting now.
Bear Grylls is one example of a gentleman who has made a lot of money out of professing to be a survival expert. What he means by that is going to unlikely places, doing things which you'd never have to accomplish in normal life, and finding a way of making a...
Paul Merton challenged first.
Hesitation, sadly.
Yes, he did. So, Paul, another point to you, and the subject, survival skills, and 36 seconds available, starting now.
In 1987, 30 years ago, I was in a hospital just over the road that is no longer there, and I was suffering from initially a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot on the lung. I also developed hepatitis A, and while I was in there, in fact, the reason why I first visited the establishment, because I'd broken my right leg playing football on the meadows. Watching comedians involved in that sport is a bit like watching footballers telling jokes.
Mark challenge.
A repetition of watching, even though I didn't really want to interrupt. It was breathtaking stuff.
Yes. Mark, you have a great challenge, and you have 14 seconds still available on survival skills starting now.
The example of Paul Merton in that hospital should demonstrate to all of us that it is never inevitable that we will die. We must...
Paul Merton
I'm
challenge.
afraid it is.
Oh, yeah.
I know I've got an inspiring story to relate, but there is a kind of sad ending.
I could have sworn you were immortal. I thought I read it in an interview or something.
Well, so far. Yes,
So have you a challenge within the rules of just a minute, Paul?
Well, it's deviation. We will all die.
Oh, yes, it's true.
Has it just occurred to you? I know you're beating the odds. I know that.
I think that would be interpreted as a deviation. So, Paul, you had a correct challenge. You have another point. You have 7 seconds on survival skills starting now.
If we're talking about survival skills, we have to look at Nicholas Parsons. Here is a man who's hosted this show for 50 years. That deserves a big round of applause.
I think...
One day you'll get it right.
Right, so we move into the final round, and for those interested in points, we have 2 equal in third place, which is Janie Godley and Mark Watson. And they are a few points behind Paul Sinner, who's 4 points behind Paul Merton. So, Paul, you are on the lead as we go into the final round. And actually, we're back with Paul Sinner to begin the last round. The subject they've got here is A crossroads. 60 seconds if you want it, Paul, starting now.
A crossroads could have been one of many things. The famous
Mark Watson got in first.
Has been judged very harshly on the show, and that was
So, Mark Watson, you've got in with 56 seconds to go on A crossroads starting now.
Should be fine. A crossroads is a point in a man or woman's life where they realise a decision has to be made, something has to be faced. All of us at some point will encounter these kind of situations. For example, you might be in a marriage and think, I'm not sure how well this is working. Ought I to leave it, bite the bullet, or should I just carry on with it? Because after all, one is only alive once. Sometimes things are very difficult. For example, sometimes that was quite difficult.
Paul Merton, new chance.
Hesitation, sadly.
Yeah, that was a hesitation. Right. Another point to you, Paul, and 36 seconds are available. A crossroads starting now.
In the mythology of the blues, it's suggested that Robert Johnson, the fine guitarist of the 1930s, sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads. And this what made him have this remarkable facility for the instrument in his hand. He was one of the early pioneers of a music that has now travelled all over the world. When we think of Nicholas Parsons' Blue Band, we know exactly that this is a musical group rather than something he has to wear because of his age. And it is extraordinary, a crossroads. We remember it as a soap opera, of course, from the 60s, 70s and into the 80s. Lots of people watched it at the time. They would say, a crossroads, this is where I want to stay, in a motel.
So Paul Merton, with a great flourish, brought that round to an end and the show to an end. For those interested in the points, let me tell you that Janie Godley, who hasn't played the game very much, and Mark Watson, who's playing it for the first time, finished equal in fourth place. Technically, I've got that wrong. They equal in third place. They were equal. Because there's only the second and the first ahead of them. And it was very close there. We had two Pauls. Paul Sinner got a lot of points. He played extremely well, but he was just beaten by the other Paul Merton. So we say Paul Merton is therefore the winner, and congratulate him personally. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again at the same time next week when we take to the air and play the game. In the meantime, I say thank you to Paul Merton, Janie Godley, Mark Watson and Paul Sinner. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the stopwatch and blown her whistle so well. We're indebted to our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. From the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, thank you, and tune in again the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute!